our units 4-5 study guide. This will be at least problems 15 through 18, but we'll probably get all of our problems done on this one. So we're looking at number 15. It says what will be the new position of this point, 0,6, after a translation of 6 units down and 3 units to the right. Probably the best way to think about that is to write out our rule. And we know that when we have a translation like this, we start with an ordered pair xy. And we are going to go 6 units down. So remember that up and down is your y value. So we'll say y minus 6. 3 units right, that's our x value, so we'll say x plus 3. So if I started with a point 0,6, then my new point is going to be 3, 0, because I say 0 plus 3 is 3, and 6 minus 6 is 0. So hopefully there is a 3, 0, and there is. Then looking at number 16, it says what will be the new position of a point 9, negative 4 after we reflect over the y-axis. So remember, you can always draw yourself a quick kind of brief coordinate grid if you want to, and you imagine 9, negative 4 would be sort of like that. If you're reflecting over the y-axis, you know it's going to be in this direction. It's going to be negative 9, negative 4. So that is one way to figure out that problem. It's going to be negative 9, negative 4. Or if you remember your rule, then you start with an xy ordered pair. When you reflect over the y-axis, y stays the same, and your x value changes. So my x value started as 9, so we're going to make that negative 9. And I keep the y value exactly the same. So I end up with negative 9, negative 4 either way. What will be the new position of a point negative 8, negative 2 after a dilation of 1/2? Remember, that means k equals 1/2, so we're going to multiply that factor times whatever our ordered pairs are. So negative 8 times 1/2, that's going to be negative 4. And negative 2 times 1/2 is going to be negative 1. So negative 4, negative 1 is going to be our answer there. Remember, we said we went from an ordered pair xy. When you are translating with dilation, you're going to have a new ordered pair that's your k value times x and your k value times y. And just remember 1/2 times negative 8. You can think of it as 2 fractions if you need to. I'm just solving for the x value. So I get negative 8 over 2, and a negative divided by a positive is negative, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so that would be to find my new x. To find my new y, negative 2 times 1/2 would be negative 2 over 2, which is just negative 1. All right, so we're going to reflect the next figure over the x-axis, and we're going to figure out the location, the ordered pair of the image of that vertex G. So we have to think to ourselves, which one's the x-axis? That is this one right here. And so if we are reflecting over x, then I take each point and I move it exactly the opposite direction. So it is 1, 2 away from the x-axis. So whoomp whoomp. G prime is going to be right there at negative 2, negative 2. That's all you're asked to do, but if you wanted to see what everything else would do, h prime would be, I'm going to go 2 away. That would be h prime. F prime, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if I wanted to reflect over the x-axis, you can see it's kind of overlapping on itself. That's okay. The whole new figure would look like that, but I just needed to find G prime. And so G prime was negative 2, negative 2. 19. All we are doing here is describing what is the transformation that's happening. Is it a dilation, getting bigger and smaller? Is it a reflection, so that you have a change in orientation? Or is it a translation? Did you just move it left and right and up and down? So when I look at this guy, going from K to K prime, going from black to blue here, I can see that all I did was I moved to the right. It doesn't even ask me to give the rule, so I'm just going to say that that's a translation. Just moved it to the right. Here, this is a change in size. So I went from the black image to the blue image and I got bigger. It doesn't ask me to describe the factor, but I know that that was a dilation. I went from smaller to bigger. And here, notice how my W and my W prime, they're on the inside, and Y prime and Y, they're on the outside. I can see that this was a reflection over the Y axis, but we only are going to say reflection since that's what was asked of us. Okay, and I believe we are nearing the end. Number 20. So the figure below is translated using this rule. So we're just going to remember how to apply a rule. I take an XY ordered pair, and then I'm going to adjust the X, and I'm going to adjust the Y according to the rule. It only asks me to describe this transformation for J. So if J started out as negative 1, 2, 3, 4, so J is at negative 4, 1, then J prime is going to be J prime, I'm going to add 3 to the X value, so negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1, and I'm going to subtract 2 from the Y value. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So my J prime would be at negative 1, negative 1. All right, our last couple of problems are Pythagorean theorem, which was the most recent thing we learned. So remember, anytime you're talking about Pythagorean theorem, you know your rule is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And c is always the hypotenuse. C is always the side that is directly across from your right angle. Okay, so it says find the missing side of the triangle. I am missing x. I can see that my c is going to be this 15, right? Because that's the hypotenuse. So I know in this case I have x squared plus 9 squared equals 15 squared, and I can use a calculator for this. X squared plus 81 equals 225. X squared equals hold on one sec. X squared equals 144. And so to get just x, to find that missing length, that missing leg, I'll take the square root of each side, because that means that I have x equals 12. I know the square root of 144 is 12. So A would be my correct answer. Okay, you get to use a calculator to do these problems. Number 22, I'm looking for x. In this case, this is the hypotenuse that I'm missing because it's directly across from the right angle. So I know I have 5 squared plus 12 squared equals whatever this x value is squared. So I have 25 plus 144 equals x squared. That's 169 equals x squared. To find x, I'll take the square root of each of those sides, and I know the square root of 169 is 13. But you have a calculator as well, so that would be 13. Here again, I want to find the missing side of the triangle, and I look and I see that my x that I'm missing is across from the right angle, so I am missing the hypotenuse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I have 6 squared plus 7 squared equals x squared. And I can do this math. I have 36 plus 49 equals x squared. And so I have 85 equals x squared. And if I want to find x, I'm going to take the square root of each side. Okay, so I know the square root of x squared is x. And if I don't happen to have a calculator in front of me, or if I'm asked to solve and I'm allowed to just say a radical, I can see this square root of 85 is the answer I'm looking for. Over here I'm finding the missing side of a triangle, and I am missing a leg, not the hypotenuse. So what I have is 10 squared plus x squared, my missing leg, equals 11 squared. And so I'm going to say 100 plus x squared equals 121. I'll subtract 100 from each side, so I get x squared equals 21. And if I take the square root of each side, I'm going to get x equals the square root of 21. So that would be B right there. And as soon as I get my mouse to show up where I want it to, forgive me and my technical difficulties sometimes, there it is. Okay, so sometimes we're going to have some kind of word problems or images that we're going to look at. So this one says the front of a tent is shaped like a triangle, and the slanted sides are both 5 feet long. The bottom of the tent is 6 feet across. So if I want to know the height of the tent, I'm looking for a right triangle. So right now I can see if this tent pole comes straight down and everything is even, I know that the bottom of the triangle that I care about is going to be 3 feet. So I also have 3 feet in that direction. But I can find that missing x because I know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are legs and c is the hypotenuse. 5 is my hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle. So I'm going to say x squared plus 3 squared equals 5 squared. This is x, this is the other leg, and that's my hypotenuse. X squared plus 9 equals 25. I have x squared equals 16, and if I take the square root of each side, I know that x equals 4. So the height of that tent pole at the tallest would be 4 feet. And we have a baseball diamond. It's a square, and since it's a square, and I've said it's a square, then I know this is a right angle, this is a right angle. I actually know that's a right angle also, but that's not going to help me in this case. So a baseball diamond is a square with sides of 90 feet. And the catcher is going to have to throw a baseball from home plate all the way to second base. So what would be the shortest distance? What I can see is that I have this triangle right here is a right triangle, where if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, it's the hypotenuse that I'm missing. And I can see that one leg is 90 and the other leg is 90. So I have 90 squared plus 90 squared equals c squared. So 8100 plus 8100 equals c squared. And I know that that means 16,200 equals c squared. Okay, it asks me to find to the nearest tenth of a foot. So I'm going to take the square root of each side, and in this case, I am going to use a calculator. So I'm going to find the square root of 16,200, and when I see that on the calculator, it says 127.279. I'm not done here. It says to the nearest tenth of a foot. So remember, this is my tenths place. I look to the right. If it's 5 or above, I'm going to give it a shove up. It is. So I actually want to say that my answer is 127.3 feet. That is the distance from home plate to second base. All right. So these last couple of questions, a triangle has side lengths 12, 15, and 9 feet, and we want to know, is that a right triangle? So things to remember, your longest side is always going to be your hypotenuse. So I know a squared plus b squared has to equal c squared if it's a right triangle. So let's see if it is. This has to be c, right? Because that's the biggest one. So is 12 squared plus 9 squared equal to 15 squared? That's our question. And so 144 plus 81, does that equal 225? And 1 and 4 is 5, 8 and 4 is 12, carry the 1 is 2. It does make a true math statement, and so yes, it is a right triangle. Okay, so when I look at a different triangle that has side lengths 13, 5, and 10, I know the biggest one is my hypotenuse. Okay, so I'm going to say 5 squared plus 10 squared equals 13 squared. If this is true, then it means it's a right triangle. 25 plus 100 equals 169. I'm wondering, is that true? It's not. 125 does not equal 169. And so that may be a triangle, but it is not a right triangle. So I have enough information to tell that it is not actually a right triangle because it didn't follow the Pythagorean theorem. All right, so this might take some of you a minute to figure out how to do this problem, but some of you might have caught on right away. I actually have a couple of different options. I have these 2 points, and I need to figure out the distance between them. So I am going to make myself a right triangle. I'm going to try anyway. And so I am looking for this distance right here. That's my hypotenuse. This is a right angle, right? So if I know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, I can see that a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is 5, plus b, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'm going to erase and just make sure I didn't miss anything there. Yep, I'm going to go to 12 squared. That all equals c squared. So I have 25 plus 144 equals c squared. 169 equals c squared. And I can take the square root of each side there, and I know 13 equals c, or our missing side. So this must be a 5, 12, 13 triangle. 13 is the distance between those 2 points. Okay, if you have any other questions on your study guide, be sure to write them down and make sure you ask before we have our test. And there are also some extra practice materials that you can find in Schoology. Thanks for watching.